When I wrote this book, I was very proud of it. I think it's one of the best things I've ever written. So I have a couple of friends who were writers, and I wanted to get their opinion. And you have to understand, I had 30 or 40 people who had read the book and just absolutely adored the book. And not just my friends and my mother. These were people that I worked with in the bookstore, people who were very, very tough on that sort of stuff. So I showed it to my 2 writer friends, and they read the first chapter and sent me back basically, yeah, it's nice. That's really good. Glad you're finished with it. I was a little bit curious about that. And then one of them was diagnosed with brain cancer. And about 6 weeks later, she died. And the other friend came to me and he said, I'm really sorry. I would not tell you this unless it was an absolute deathbed promise. My other friend wanted me to tell you that your book was so bad it gave her brain cancer. Now most people would think, what a terrible thing to do. But you had to know my friend, okay? She used to walk around conventions kicking people for fun. And I was very, very pleased and honored that she chose me to spit at from the grave. I have spent my whole life researching stuff like this. I am a bit of an obsessive, and for 6 or 8 months I am fascinated by everything. I was fascinated by torture for a while, and I know, but you know I'm twisted already, so not really fascinated in the doing of it, but the how does it work? How does the psychological part of it work? I went through a period where I read, Anne Rule books and all the true crime stuff. Then I flip-flopped over and I did a period of time where I read from the perspective of the person who, the behavioral scientists, who are incredible heroes. And I noticed some things. One is that everybody knows who Ted Bundy is, but I'd be willing to bet you can't name one of his victims. We forget those people, and that's one of the points that I make in the book, that the killers become the important part of it for us. I studied criminal justice for a long time. Every once in a while I will go back to school to get my bachelor's, and someday, probably in my 80s, I will acquire that. And in just a lot of internet research, I read a lot of stuff about a lot of different kind of serial killers. Albert Fish, who put pins in his scrotum and whipped himself and was a cannibal. Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer, all the big ones. Chikatilo in Russia. I studied a lot of them. I've watched a lot of Discovery Channel about them, and their minds fascinate me. And I think their minds fascinate everybody because, let's face it, Dante's Inferno sells a lot more than his Paradiso. I am sort of a prude, and you will find that in most of my books that there's not a lot of sex, minimal amount of violence, very little profanity. In this one, I have a lot of all of them, mostly because it's about serial killers. I'm a huge respecter of Mark Twain, and I love his stuff. And one of the great things that he did with his writing is he used words to show you things about people. In Huckleberry Finn, every time somebody uses the word N, that's kind of a code for this person's a jerk, this person's a moron, and they're stupid. They're using the N-word. I sort of do that with profanity, and in this book there is a lot of profanity, and every time you hear somebody speaking that way, I use it to show that they have no respect for society or themselves or the people around them. The people who are violent, and it's sort of to show that they are searching for something. They're sort of trying to find something that's missing in their lives. Ben kills people to fill some sort of hole, as does Lewis. So, though none of these things are gratuitous, there are a lot of them, and they are representational of things. And I think that even knowing that, some people are going to get offended by what I've written, and I didn't want anybody to ever think that I would advocate serial murderers or rape or any of that sort of thing. So I needed sort of a disapproving voice of that, a tongue cluck, and a place to give people an idea of, my true feelings on this, that I think it's reprehensible and terrible. And also small towns, there's a wonderful thing about terrible things happening in small towns because you have so many people who are just shocked, including the police. And it was an important factor that this was a very small town. You have these serial murderers. What kind of resources do they have? Do they have money? Do they have manpower? No, it's a small town. In this small town, they deal with traffic violations and teenagers walking around with their hoodies hanging out and, you know, that sort of thing. They never really deal with a guy who's out there killing 2 women a week. And when that happens, there has to be some sort of response, and it's probably not going to be the same response you get in some place like Washington or you know, LA, where you have 50 million cops and you have a whole branch of people who are trained to do that. So I wanted to use that in the book. So I picked Florida. And I love Florida. It's a great place. You know, Dunkin' Donuts, on the beach, drinking too many Mai Tais, vomiting in the Gulf of Mexico. It's really a great vacation. You should try it sometime.